Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Rabb. Where should I begin? I'm 31 years old, doing great in my marketing job, and I thought I understood all my family issues. Everything changed when my little sister Maria began to plan her wedding. I went to help her plan her special day, but it soon became obvious that things were going to be trickier than I thought. Our dad, John, was always on our minds. Since his divorce, he has changed a lot. He's been having a hard time getting caught up in drinking and bad decisions. I think one of the worst choices is his new girlfriend, Julie. When I first met her, I felt something was off. One day, while Maria and I were picking flowers, she looked at me and I could hear the worry in her voice. "Lily, do you think Dad will come here sober?" she asked, her eyes full of hope. "I really hope so," I said, trying to make her feel better. "I do it for you." But inside, I really didn't think hope would be enough. As the wedding day came nearer, I felt more like a referee than a maid of honor, always trying to keep everyone calm. My boyfriend, Paul, was really great during everything. He would always try to help me relax, saying things like, "Babe, you can't control everything." I understand, I would say, but deep down, I couldn't help but worry. If Dad messes up this day for Maria, I won't forgive him. I had no idea that things were going to get a lot worse. A week before the wedding, I had coffee with my best friend, Teresa. She has always been the one who helps me think clearly, and I really needed her now. "What's happening with you and Julie?" she asked, looking at me in a way that showed she knew something was wrong. I spoke quietly, looking around like someone might hear me. "Something feels off about her, Teresa. She connected with Dad really fast, always saying little things to him. I heard her on the phone talking about a big opportunity that is coming up." Teresa's eyes got bigger. "Do you think she is tricking him?" "I don't know," I said, "but I will find out." That talk made me feel something, and I couldn't forget it. I stayed up late looking at social media and making quiet phone calls to some of Dad's old friends, trying to figure things out. The more I looked, the more it felt like I was finding a puzzle that I wasn't sure I wanted to figure out. One day before the wedding, Maria and I were at the place, doing some final checks, when out of nowhere, Dad and Julie came by without telling us. "Dad." Maria ran over and gave him a big hug, squealing with joy. I stayed behind and watched carefully. Julie's eyes were moving around the room as if she was looking at everything carefully. Dad said with a slur, "My little girl, all grown up." I felt really sad. He was already tipsy. "John, let's go to the bar," Julie said with a confident look as they walked away together. I felt really angry, but I tried to stay calm for Maria. Maria looked at me, her eyes shining with tears she didn't want to cry. "Lily, I want to say." I didn't let her complete what she was saying. I hugged her tight and said softly, "Don't worry, sis. Tomorrow is for you and Brian. Nothing will mess it up." I wish I had realized how mistaken I was. People say there is always a quiet time before a big trouble. Our storm was coming, and it was going to be really strong, like a huge hurricane. I stood there, holding my baby sister Maria tight, and I made a quiet promise to myself. I will always make sure she is happy. Back then, I didn't know I would be fighting for more than just a great wedding day. The ceremony was really nice. Maria looked really beautiful, and for a short time, all the family problems seemed to go away. As I stood next to her, watching her say her vows to Brian, I felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps we can get through this day without any issues. I really wanted Maria to have one perfect day. But that delicate hope was broken as soon as we entered the reception. I spotted him right away, Dad, by the bar, already drunk, with Julie holding onto him tightly. I felt really sad. "You okay?" Paul, my boyfriend, whispered as he squeezed my hand, sensing my unease. I've got to hold it together for Maria, I muttered, forcing a smile. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before something went terribly wrong. As the night wore on, the tension in the room became unbearable. Dad's laughter grew louder, his movements more and more sloppy. Julie's eyes kept scanning the room, a strange gleam in them that made my skin crawl. Something wasn't right, and I could feel it. "Lily, Dad's making a scene," Maria whispered to me, her voice filled with worry. "I'll handle it," I said, trying to sound confident. I walked over to where Dad was attempting a very unsteady Macarena, stumbling and laughing like nothing was wrong. "Dad, let's get some fresh air," I suggested, trying to stay calm. "Nonsense," he slurred. "I'm celebrating my baby girl's big day." He tried to twirl but nearly fell over. Julie appeared at his side, tightening her grip on his arm. "Leave him alone. He's having fun," she said sharply. "This isn't about fun. It's about showing respect for Maria on her special day," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Julie's eyes narrowed as she sneered. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always trying to control everything." The argument escalated quickly. We moved to a quieter corner of the room, but our voices kept rising with each exchange. "You don't know anything about our family," I spat at her, my patience gone. "I know one thing," she hissed. "Your daddy prefers my company over yours." Something inside me snapped. "Is that before or after you drained him of his money, Julie?" I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. Her face twisted with rage, and before I could react, she lunged at me, grabbing a knife from a nearby dessert table. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. I saw the blade glint under the reception lights, heard people screaming, and felt my heart pounding in my chest. All I could think was, I've ruined Maria's wedding. But then, out of nowhere, Paul tackled Julie, sending the knife clattering to the floor. Chaos erupted around us. Guests screamed and scattered. Chairs were overturned, and the whole scene became a blur of noise and movement. Through the mayhem, all I could focus on was Maria. How had it come to this? I had promised to protect her happiness, but now her wedding day was turning into a nightmare. I saw Maria's horrified face as Brian held her back. Security rushed in, quickly restraining Julie as she screamed obscenities at anyone who came near. It was chaos. I stood there frozen as the police arrived and led Julie away in handcuffs. In that brief moment, I caught a glimpse of Dad. He looked completely lost and broken. That was when I realized things would never be the same again. The days following the wedding were a blur. Between police reports, interviews, and endless sleepless nights, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Every little sound made me jump, and the image of Julie lunging at me with that knife replayed in my mind over and over. Paul, my rock through all of this, held me close whenever the nightmares hit. "You're safe now, Liv," he whispered, trying to comfort me. But feeling safe seemed impossible. How could I feel safe when my own father's girlfriend had tried to stab me at my sister's wedding? How do you even begin to recover from something like that? Maria, understandably, was a wreck. When I visited her about a week after everything had happened, she couldn't even look at me. "All those months of planning," she said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "And for what? My wedding will always be remembered as the day someone tried to kill my sister." "Maria, I'm so sorry," I started, guilt weighing heavily on me. She cut me off, shaking her head. "I know it's not your fault, Liv, but still I can't help feeling like our family is cursed or something." While Maria was dealing with her pain, Dad was in complete denial. He called me constantly, leaving voicemails that made my blood boil. "Lily, sweetie, let's not blow this out of proportion," he'd say. Julie was just upset. She didn't mean any harm. Hearing him defend her like that after everything she had done was infuriating. The final straw came when he showed up at my apartment reeking of alcohol. I opened the door to find him swaying slightly, his eyes glassy. "Dad, you need to leave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But Pumpkin, we're family. We need to stick together," he slurred, sounding pitiful. I felt something harden inside me as I looked at him. "No, Dad, we're done. I can't do this anymore." The hurt in his eyes almost made me waver. Almost. But as I closed the door, I knew it was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, Teresa, my ever-determined best friend, had started digging into Julie's past. What we uncovered left me speechless. "Liv, look at this," Teresa said one night, spreading papers across my coffee table. "Julie's got a record. Assault, fraud, you name it." I scanned the documents, feeling sick to my stomach. How did Dad not know about this? Teresa hesitated, biting her lip. "That's the thing, Liv, I think he did." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. We found joint bank accounts, suspicious money transfers, and evidence that Dad wasn't just a victim in all of this. He was an accomplice. Telling Maria what we discovered was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We sat together in her kitchen, the wedding gifts still sitting in the corner untouched. "I can't believe it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How could he do this to us? I don't even know him anymore." I didn't have an answer for her. I didn't know who Dad was anymore either. I spoke softly but firmly. "We need to protect ourselves now." Maria looked at me, her expression shifting to one of determination. "I'm with you, Liv. Always," she replied. Despite her words, the guilt weighed heavily on me. I had exposed our father's crimes, and in doing so, I might have destroyed his life. But then again, hadn't he already done that to himself? The mix of anger, confusion, and guilt was too much for me to handle alone. So I decided to seek help. That's how I found myself sitting in a therapist's office, trying to make sense of it all. "Lily, it's normal to feel conflicted," my therapist, Dr. Jacob, reassured me during one of our sessions. "You've been through something traumatic. You're grieving the loss of the father you thought you knew." I stared down at my hands, feeling torn. But shouldn't I hate him after everything he's done? "There's no should when it comes to emotions," she explained kindly. "What's important is that you acknowledge how you feel and work through it." Working through it sounded easy, but it wasn't. Still, as I left Dr. Jacob's office that day, I felt a small glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild something positive from the ruins of my family's past. For months after the wedding disaster, I found myself in a place I never thought I'd be, happy. Despite everything that had happened, I had a strong support system. Maria, Paul, Teresa, and I had become an unbreakable team. Our bond was stronger than ever. One night, while we were having dinner at my apartment, Maria raised her glass. To new beginnings, she toasted. And to family, the one we choose, I added, clinking glasses with my sister. The media was all over Julie's trial. It was a circus. Sitting in that courtroom, my stomach was in knots as Julie's true nature was revealed for everyone to see. Dad sat beside me, looking completely stunned as her history of crimes came to light. But the real shock was yet to come. Teresa and I had been working hard, gathering evidence of Dad's involvement in Julie's schemes. During the trial, our lawyer stood up and addressed the court. "Your Honor, we have documentation proving John Rabe's involvement in Miss Blake's fraudulent activities." As the legal battle continued, my personal life took an unexpected turn for the better. My career started to take off. One Sunday afternoon, my boss called me into his office. "Lily, we're promoting you to Senior Marketing Director," he said with a smile. "Your resilience and creativity this past year have been outstanding." I left his office in a daze, immediately calling Paul to share the news. "Babe, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you," he exclaimed, excitement clear in his voice. Amidst all the chaos, Maria and Brian made a beautiful decision. They decided to renew their vows. This time it was a small, intimate ceremony in their backyard with only close friends and family. "Second time's the charm," Brian joked, making Maria giggle as they exchanged rings again. Watching them, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We were finally healing, all of us. Then the day of Julie's sentencing arrived. The courtroom was filled with tension as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. As I sat there, I reflected on how far we had come since that fateful wedding day. We had been through so much pain and betrayal, but somehow we had made it through. We were strong and we were going ahead. It was hard, but we found our way back to each other. The storm was over, and we were starting to feel calm again. I got up to give my victim impact statement. My hands were shaking, but my voice was calm. "The marks from that night are still there," I said, "but they have made me stronger." I stared right at Julie, feeling this was my chance to take back my life. I'm here today not as someone who has suffered, but as someone who has overcome. When Julie was taken away in handcuffs, I felt a sense of peace. It felt like a long and hard part of my life was finally finishing. But the true celebration happened a month later. Maria, Brian, Paul, Teresa, and I met at my favorite restaurant to celebrate my promotion and all we had been through together. To Lily, Teresa lifted her glass, grinning broadly. "The strongest person I have met." I had to jump in before she was done and say, "To all of us." I looked at the faces of the people who had been with me during the toughest year of my life. To show that family is not only about blood, but also about loyalty and love. While we laughed and told stories, I felt a change inside me. I saw how much had changed. The last year felt like a bad dream, but in a weird way it was also a blessing. It showed me who was truly important. It showed me how strong I can be. It helped me find the strength to remove negative and harmful things from my life. As I sat there, feeling the real love and happiness around me, I realized this was my happy ending. It wasn't perfect, and it had its marks, but it was real, and that made it beautiful. For the first time in a while, I felt good about what is coming next. I felt thankful for the family I found and the strength I discovered in myself. That's how my story finishes, but I want to know what you think. If you were me, would you give your dad another chance after all he did? Or would you have kept those limits like I did? It's a hard choice, and I understand that many of you have gone through similar problems with difficult family members. I want to know about your experiences. Share in the comments how you dealt with tough family situations in your life. If you liked my story, please click the like button and think about subscribing for more real-life stories and talks about dealing with tricky family relationships. Your help is really important to me, and it lets me keep sharing these personal stories. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.